Please give a warm welcome to Stan Grot.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you very much. Well, I feel at home. I'm one of you. How many of you heard of the Romeo Area Tea Party?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. They had about 2,000 members at one time, and I was their advisor. I helped them to organize that group. And what happened is that group was doing extremely well, but at that point, the president passed away, and the group fell apart. But it was huge at one point, and that group made a big difference in Macomb County, Lapeer, St. Clair County area, electing good Republicans, conservative Republicans, and the rhinos were not comfortable with that group constantly watching their votes, just keeping them honest, basically. But like I said, I feel at home. I'm a product of Ronald Reagan and Tea Party. I'm very proud to say that. Thank you. Thank you. A little bit about myself. I'm running because I know how to do the job, folks. I don't need a job. I'm in Shelby Township. I have 2.5 years to go. Got a beautiful job, full-time job, full benefits. 1 mile from home. I'm very comfortable, even though I have a wife and four beautiful children. How many of you did not get the literature from me, my flyer here? If you didn't, my sister here, who claims to be my younger sister, she'll make sure you get one of those. Plus, I got additional handout, which I'm going to be talking about it in 1 minute. I don't have enough. I made only 50, but if you don't mind, please share it. It's very important that you take a look at that. It's one of those flyers with the blue graft on it. So, as I mentioned to you, right now I am Shelby Township Clerk for about the last 6.5 years. I was appointed there, and I was re-elected twice. First time when I got there, I did have opposition, but I won anyway. This last time I won, I ran the best campaign of my life. I ran unopposed. and those are the best campaigns, right? You always win. So, but nobody would dare run, because how can you run against the neighborhood-friendly clerk? That's my nickname in Shelby Township. Folks, I know elections inside out. I run them, sometimes 2, 3 a year. I know the equipment, I know the softwares, I know the hardware, I know absentee balloting. I know too much, probably. This is why the Democrats don't like me, and they never will, because I know what to look for. For instance, in 2016 in Detroit recount, how many of you participated in that? It was eye-opening, wasn't it? We don't know if it was incompetence or fraud. I know it was incompetence by the clerk, because the fraud is a little bit more difficult to prove, but definitely incompetence. Detroit News said about the clerk in Detroit, 2017, she ran against another liberal Democrat and she won. She won with the absentee voting. She did not win on election day. He creamed her on election day. She won in absentee voting. So Detroit News said this about her, that the clerk won because of her own incompetence. This is Detroit News. This is not my words. But I think it's more than that, because absentee voting is a little different than election day, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret, because I know the system. I was Assistant Secretary of State also for 7.5 years. So I know that job inside and out. I will take questions in a minute. Or am I time up?
No, keep going.
No? All right. You will be scared as hell at the end of my presentation. What's going on in our election system? I'm gonna expose some things that you never heard of. An average person never know that this stuff is happening. Who runs elections in Michigan?
Town and city.
Local clerks. Local clerks, Secretary of State does not have much to do with elections. Secretary of State provides the qualified voter file, maintain and updates it and everything else, but the actual work is done by local clerks. How would you feel if I tell you the clerks are gods when it comes to elections? Believe me, they are. When the clerk sends out the applications for absentee ballots, those applications go directly from that clerk's office. They come back to the clerk's office. Then the clerk issues a ballot. The ballot goes out. Where do they come back? They come back to the clerk's office. Does anybody at any given point has supervision over that ballot? No, nobody. So how do you think that clerk in Detroit did so well with absentee ballots? To the point where the recount showed that 2/3 of the precinct, and in Detroit there are 435 precincts, 2/3 of those precincts have actually more people voting than people residing in those precincts. Think about what I just said. There were more voters voting in those 2/3 of the precincts than actually people that live in those precincts. Now tell me that dead people don't vote. Somebody did. Somebody voted on their behalf, folks. What just happened today with Supreme Court decisions? How many of you heard of Supreme Court decisions today? I'm going to tell you what happened, and this is what I was telling you. One of my points on my plan, which I put together a year and a half ago. My opponent now is copying a lot of this stuff because it's her speech don't work as well, and this resonates with voters because they know what I'm talking about. And I talked to the gentleman. He wanted to know what happened. What happened in Ohio? Ohio came up with the program that in 2 years, if you don't vote in 2 years, the clerk sends you a card that you will be removed from the voting roll. 2 years. If you don't participate in 2 years, they'll send you a registered card and they want you to send it back. And if you don't send it back, within 4 years, you're off the rolls. You're done. What will happen to all the dead people voting? They're gone. So in Ohio, they took the clerk to court. Not the clerk, but Secretary of State. And they appealed to the Supreme Court. They didn't like the decision that the clerk actually won the case. So they appealed to the Supreme Court. Today, Supreme Court came back and they rendered their decision. They agree with the clerk. They agree with the clerk. Now, this very interesting stuff, I'm telling you. Take a look at this blues. And this, by the way, folks, I got a hold of this a month ago. I didn't know this Ohio things is coming up. I didn't know that there was a lawsuit filed and all that. But take a look at where Ohio is on this chart when it comes to cleaning up the rolls and dead voters voting. Look at this. At that almost non-existence, what does that tell me? That Secretary of State has guts. I was going to use another word. but I think it's a female. But she, she has guts. She took him on, didn't let down, didn't let anybody bully that Secretary of State, and won. And it shows on this chart. Where is Michigan? 63% of the counties, this is mind-boggling, folks. 63% of the counties, and I feel so good talking to groups like that because you guys are the real patriot. You understand what I'm saying, and you care. You really care. And are there any liberals in the crowd? No. I don't think so. 63 in the corner?
Yeah, one in the back corner.
Oh, okay. All right, well, all right, we'll have a talk later, me and you. 63% of the counties, 63% of the counties have more voters than people living in those counties. Who is on here, folks? Who's on here?
Dead people.
Dead people. How about people that are voting in multiple states? You know what will happen when this is implemented, the 2 years and 4 years, and you're gone? When you move to a different state and you don't come back, because you don't come back in every election, you come back for presidential maybe election, you're going to be off the roll. So that will kind of eliminate some of this. But we do have people voting in multiple states. I have a little different approach and different suggestion on that one. How many of you heard about reciprocal agreements between states?
Yep.
I'll tell you what they are. What happens to you when you go to Florida and you speed 80, 90 miles an hour in 60 miles an hour speed limit? What happens to you? You get pulled over, you get a ticket. By the time you get back from your vacation from Florida, what's in your mailbox?
Insurance is up.
Ticket, you have to pay the cost of the ticket, insurance goes up and everything else. It's called reciprocal agreement. We also have it with Canada and Mexico. That means they exchange information. There's big money involved in this. Why can't we have the same thing with the voters? Because there's no money involved. There's no money in the process. But we have to have it. If you move to Ohio, Pennsylvania, or whatever, I want that state to give me a call and say, Mr. Secretary, I got your residents here, flag him or remove him from your poll. Simple. Simple, folks. Common sense. Simple. Isn't it? Simple. But it's too simple. Too simple. And government, a liberal government, bureaucratic government, needs the money to feed their egos, feed their plans, feed their whatever. But and if there is no money, they don't do anything about it. One other thing is very important to me, and I know it's to you because I know how you're thinking, because I'm one of you. Only the citizens of this country should be allowed to vote. Yeah. When I'm elected, I'm going to work very hard to make this happen. It's very easy. I think we go in that direction anyway, even though I don't like the process. The new voters, you would bring birth certificate or a passport. You would need to prove to me that yes, you are a citizen of this country in order to vote, in order to register you to vote. I feel very strongly about it. I put all this in writing. And there was a lady here and said, well, politicians make a lot of promises. How we know you're going to keep your promises? I'll tell you how. I put it in writing. I don't just go around and blow hot air. I want you to come back in a year or 2 years and say, Mr. Secretary of State, where are we at on all this? Because you agree with everything I said, I think, so far. Another thing is, why do you think Democrats stopped that recount so quickly? The judge, when he find out what the heck's going on, how quickly did the judge stop the recount? Because they didn't want the truth to come out, even though it did. The truth came out. So this is what's happening. I'm going to end with this. Remember I told you the clerk has total control of those ballots? That clerk, and this is, I can only imagine, but I don't have proof on this, but you and I will agree that we know what the heck happened there. Why, where did all these extra voters came from? Why did she win absentee ballots 2-1 and got creamed on election day? Because you can basically look up, you can go to cemetery, look up a bunch of names and request a ballot. And that ballot comes to you. You got total control of that ballot, folks. The clerk has total control of that ballot. And what happened when you wanted to recount? You couldn't. You couldn't because the seal was broken on those boxes. When the seal was broken, you cannot touch that ballot. You cannot touch that box. So a lot of votes were put in there. No checks for signatures, no checks for anything. The votes were put through machine. Those ballots were put in those boxes, knowing that you can never see who voted and how and what. You could never see it because the seals were broken. You cannot touch that box. That's why I told you clerks are gods. They run elections, they control elections, and we have great clerks all over the state. But in my opinion, we have some crooked ones. And they prove it to us that they are incompetent or corrupted. Remember I told you? I don't think about incompetency because you really have to, and you know, it doesn't take you long, 2-3 years on the job. You'll figure it out. You know how to do and how to run elections. One other thing is, when you voting, for instance, in the absentee, I'm going to end with this. When you're voting, you vote by absentee ballot. The ballot comes back to the clerk. The clerk's supposed to appoint so many Republicans, so many Democrats. There is such a thing as a remake team. Remake team, remember that. And this is what happens. When the ballot comes in, and this is thousands of ballots. This is not just one. Because Detroit has thousands of voters. When the ballot comes in, ripped, or you spill the coffee, or somehow it went through a mailbox like this, you open this ballot. Can you run this ballot through the machine?
Probably not.
No, you can't. So you have to remake it. Who is on the remake team? No, the clerk's cousin, grandma, sister. This ballot was Republican ballot up and down. Guess what? It just became Democratic ballot. And nobody will ever know because the seal was broken on the box. This ballot goes in the box. A good ballot goes in the box. You never get to see if this actual ballot was remade properly. That goes with military ballots as well. Military ballots come in many forms, including electronic, and they could be manipulated. And our servicemen that fight for our freedoms don't even know that their vote was switched or didn't count. I told you I'm going to scare the heck out of you. This is, you know, as much as I do, but I just told you maybe 5% of what's really going on. Because I don't have enough time, and I know Marianne is timing me here. Listen, if you have any questions, I'm going to stick around here. I appreciate everything you do. Just keep them honest, folks. Keep them honest. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Do not be afraid. Ask questions. There's no stupid questions. There's no dumb questions. Ask questions and keep their feet to the fire, folks. I hope I can earn your support. Thank you very much. Please remember, experience counts. Experience counts. I have experience to go in and do the job on day one. I don't. Okay, thank you. I don't need high-paying handlers to tell me what to do. I know what to look for, and I will do it when I get there. God bless everybody. Thank you.